Maybe you're used to your mind wandering when you're in the middle of conversations. Maybe that happens when you're having sex and you start to fantasize about a different woman. When that's happening to you, it's happening to her. When you're fantasizing about fucking a different woman whilst you're having sex with your partner, she's fantasizing about being fucked by a different guy. Not being in a flow state for your relationships is horrible. So we need to fix that. Because otherwise, all you're going to have are these sad and stupid, shallow relationships, which are just pointless. If you're with someone who's constantly overthinking and they're not even present and they're not even conscious next to you, it's like they're not even there to begin with. If you're the one who's not present, if you're the one whose mind always wanders when you're next to people, there's no point in you even being there. There's no point in them inviting you for you to be there next time. People don't want to be around others who they can tell aren't very present because it's a very ugly trait to have. Imagine me and you were speaking. You're telling me something important and you can see that my mind just drifts. You can physically see it. You instantly would lose respect for me. And even if you somewhat liked me, the truth is you wouldn't want to spend much more time with me. Now, relationships are one of the most important parts of our lives. And in fact, in the book that I read for this video, it's called Flow by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, like this guy who discovered the concept of flow states. He actually ended up finding that through his studies, work and relationships were the times when we were most happy, but also most upset and depressed. The kind of like two big extremes. Work can make you super, super happy because you get into a flow state and you feel super happy with yourself, but it can make you super depressed because you could hate your work, you hate the commute and everything else attached to it. Relationships can make you super happy because it can be you in a flow state with people that you love. It can be this loving relationship that you have with this beautiful feminine woman, and it could be your mother telling you stories, but it could also be this abusive boss. It could also be this dad who shouts at you. It could also be this girlfriend that you don't even like. So they're the two extremes. Now, if we can get to the top end of this extreme, and then you can start to live this very unique, happy life. This is exactly what happens, and you can clarify me if I'm wrong, but you meet this girl and things are super, super exciting. You actually get butterflies on the thought of like meeting her in person or calling for the first time. You're shaking, right? That means that the challenge for this task is actually quite high. But with the girl that you end up attracting, usually that means that your skill was at the right level. So the challenge, the sort of difficulty of this situation was high, but your skill level was high. You meet her for another date, it's the same thing. Eventually you have sex and it feels like, it's really perfectly on level like this. Soon you've been in the relationship for 3 months, for 6 months, she's smelt your poop 50 times. The challenge has dropped, but your skill level is still here. This is why relationships feel kind of boring, because your skill's too good for it. This is kind of like playing level 1 on a video game, but just forever. Most couples are the equivalent of that. They're literally just playing like this beginner's game, even though they've got higher skills. So when the challenge and difficulty is very low, but your skill is higher, it results in boredom. You can imagine this, right? Imagine playing a video game that's too easy and then being forced to just play the same level over and over and over again. You'd get bored. You'd want to cheat. You'd want to go play a different video game. Now imagine if you made a pact with this original video game that you would only play that one and none more. You would cheat. Or you'd be tempted to every single day thinking, why the fuck is your relationship so boring when all those other games look so much more fun, right? So how do we fix this? How do we fix the big problem of relationships getting so boring? We need to just increase the challenge level, the difficulty level. This is our skills, this is the challenge, the difficulty. Naturally, when we spend time with someone, the challenge starts going down because we get used to them and our skill goes higher because, we start learning more things about relationships and our ability to express ourselves and to partner up and everything, right? So we're here. We start feeling bored. This is where most couples will live for their entire lives. But the couples who know about flow state will be constantly thinking to themselves, how do we increase challenge and difficulty in our relationship? Conversations are a place that we can increase the challenge and difficulty in the relationships. Here's our current conversational skill, our current skill in relationships. Here's where we are. This is where our conversations are. You know that I've seen some studies that show like very sad facts that the average couple, like 30-year-old middle-aged somewhat couples, they literally have like 40 minutes of quality conversation a week. Most of their conversation is just like logistics. It's all just like, oh yeah, what are you going to do today at 5 p.m? Yeah, I'll go to this place, then I'll come, it's just boring stuff. They're not even like expanding their consciousness together. The couples who are on track to become like really loving and they understand flow state, what they'll do is they'll realize their skill's really high. So they'll say, okay, well, how can we use our skill? Let's ask each other harder questions. Let's explore the depths of each other's minds because that's super, super interesting. So one person in the couple looks to the other one and says, what are you most afraid of? And the challenge goes up. And that one answers, and then they ask back, okay, so what are you most afraid of? That one goes up. What's the worst thing that ever happened to you as a child? Now you see, like, we're making the relationship, the conversations a little bit more difficult compared to the mundane, usual conversations that people get into. And suddenly we're at our skill level. And, you can go too far. You could maybe ask a question that's like super triggering or, personal or something. And you maybe aren't that close enough in the relationship to deal with that. And your skill is below that. Fair enough. But by asking these deep questions, these random things that you just want to almost pick the brain, explore the brain of your partner, it makes your experience with them more complex. Now, I must point out, this is not simping. This is not blue pill or something. In the modern space, it's so weird. You can be speaking about a wholesome relationship activity, and little kids will comment simp. How is this anything like simping at all? This is you with a partner that you have chosen, now leveling up the skill of love, which is mutually beneficial. That's awesome. So in these conversations, you can ask deeper questions and then follow the same principles that you know about flow states. Remember, so at first it might feel like a bit of a trudge. It feels kind of a bit slow, like you're in that waist deep level of snow. After you've asked your partner a deep question, your mind might start to wander. You might get a little bit bored or agitated. You might want to change the topic, but you bring the attention back, just like we did with a task that we're doing on our computers. We use the exact same flow principles in conversations. So you must know that your mind is going to wander, and that for the first 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of the conversation, we're just going to constantly keep bringing it back and, maybe stare at one of their eyes or something to stay focused. Obviously, using good listening skills will help here. Don't just start to form your response to the question in your mind before they've finished talking. Let them talk. Try your best to absolutely listen to every tiny little pitch of their voice. Listen to their voice as if you're going to go deaf tomorrow for life. Every tonality, every way that they express themselves, see the sweetness in that. You can pretend that you've just been deaf for the past 20 years and their voice is the first thing that you hear. Listen to it with that much detail. You wouldn't interrupt. You wouldn't be thinking about what you're going to say next, would you? Now imagine if you do this enough that your partner starts to do this for you. Imagine if your partner listens to you so well that it seems like she literally is preparing to go deaf and she just wants to hear your tones and speech patterns. Think about the level of relationship you can get to when you just increase the challenge just in the conversations. Your actionable step, and do this right now, is to write down 3 open-ended, deep questions that you can ask anyone that you love. So maybe it's your girlfriend, maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your brother. Some kind of deep question that would help you explore the depths of their mind. I know that I can just give you some ideas, but I'm not going to. I want you to really think about the person who you'd ask this question to and just ask yourself authentically, what would I actually kind of like to know about them? What don't I know about them already? What's an experience of their life that I would probably find super interesting to know? Write those 3 questions down and set an intention right here, right now, that you're going to ask one of these questions today. Whether it's in a video call or it's in person, you're going to ask one of them today to deepen your conversation. You liked this video, so go and watch the full guide because it took me weeks to make and it will genuinely change your life. It's popped up as a card. Go click on that right now. It's also a link in the description. Go click on that right now.